everybody, welcome to the Originals. My name is Brad, and on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the 7 worst things about The Mandalorian.
The length of the episodes.
At this point, we're all used to 45-minute episodes for dramatic television, and it's been that way for as long as I can remember. Shows that don't adhere to this standard always felt a little bit rushed and superficial. That extra 15 minutes allows for dramatic weight to be felt on a more meaningful level, and for plot points to resonate more widely, and to build for stronger payoff. The pacing feels more natural. It feels like the right amount of time for the storyteller and the right amount of time for me to settle into the story being told. With comedies, plot and atmosphere aren't nearly as important because they are more often than not character-driven, whereas dramas are more plot-driven. So accomplishing what a comedy sets out to do in a half-hour time constraint is much more realistic. With The Mandalorian, when each episode ended, I threw up my hands and I'm all, what, already? Now, I would also do that with Game of Thrones, for example, but I never felt that pit, that hunger for more, that lack of satisfaction like I do with dramatic shows that are only a half hour long. And you might say, but that just means that it's a good show and you're enjoying yourself and want more. That's the effect they want. That just means it's a good show. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that they need to write 15 more minutes of content per episode and stop shortchanging their fans. That's what it means.
The way is impossible to pass without a blurg mount.
How about a rocket ship? I know there's a character somewhere in this show with a rocket ship, but I can't quite put my finger on it, though. None of the terrain shown leading up to the encampment is impossible to park his ship on. And if they would have just used his ship instead, the whole second episode would have been unnecessary, as there would have been no need for him to chase the Jawas, or to kill the giant beast with a butter knife, or to rebuild the ship with the I have spoken dude. In fact, there was no need for him to even meet that character, other than the character knew exactly where the Yoda baby was, which was helpful and necessary, but he could have just taken him up in his ship and had him point to where the stronghold was, but that would have been boring, right? Yes, it would have been boring, but that's what separates a good writer from a bad one. A good writer tests his or her story, tries to find holes in it, like this one, and either fills them or scraps the whole idea and starts over. This is what we call lazy writing. This whole episode was basically a chance for their practical effects unit to show its stuff and an opportunity for us to see inside the Javasan Crawler, which I'm not even mad about. In fact, that is still one of my favorite moments in any Star Wars related film.
Why was Yoda baby hidden in the equivalent to a broom closet with a discarded blanket strewn over its crib?
For such an important asset, one which an entire base had been built to protect, I found it odd that it was just randomly sitting next to some other junk under a blanket behind a blast door. It makes me wonder what other operations they had going on there, and if old Werner Herzog should have been paying more attention.
Why was IG-88 given specific orders to terminate the asset, and Mando was specifically told that the asset was more valuable alive?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Not much else to say about it. That's just bad writing.
The death of the Mudhorn.
Now, I mentioned this in my review of the second episode of the show. I'll link it in the description. Since then, my opinion has not changed. The Mudhorn was such a lost opportunity, such a waste of dramatic capital. And frankly, if the producers had given each episode 15 more minutes or more, this could have been a halfway decent moment in this episode, but it wasn't. Okay, so why do I think it was bad? The knife he killed the gigantic monster with was this big. and he stabbed it once above its shoulder, and it just anticlimactically sumps over as if it had been bleeding profusely for 15 minutes and had lost too much blood. Not even remotely believable. And extremely lazy from a production perspective, but it looked fantastic. The show looks fantastic, but I'll save that for the Dopes episode.
Why would everyone still have their fobs?
This one was a little bit sneakier, but it irked me. In fact, this is worse than Game of Thrones Season 8 level writing here. Look, if I'm a bounty hunter and it's my job to track down bounties, if I do that for a way to find food and shelter, first off, I would likely be out in the field trying to locate that particular target so I could acquire it and bring it back to the client. Now, after Mando gets the bounty in the first episode, he has some armor made and then he hops in his spaceship and flies into space, into a different planet. A different planet. Now, either the apparent 12.5 people who were given fobs were all given faulty fobs, they are really bad bounty hunters, perhaps super unmotivated, or they didn't realize that they were in a time constraint. Maybe nobody explained that to them. That's probably what happened. Werner Herzog neglected to stress that time was of the essence, that he wanted the asset delivered sooner rather than later. Perhaps for everyone but Mando, he was all, "No, please, take your time. I have several errands to run this week that are super time consuming, and it would actually work better for me if you just stuck around for a few days laughing about Zabar acting menacing in the alleyway before you left." Also, everyone in the Bounty Hunters Guild, or whatever, knew that Mando had completed the bounty. Chubbs even called him a legend when he came to collect his new bounty. And everyone there looked at him like he was a nude woman in a high school boy's locker room, which means they would have turned in their fob or thrown it away. They definitely wouldn't have kept it.
Why is Mando caught by surprise so often?
3 times within 10 minutes in the 3rd episode, Mando was caught by surprise, ambushed, or on the losing end of a drop. In a universe where people can low-key see the future and are basically space wizards, you're telling me that they couldn't have given Mando just a little bit of force sensitivity, just a teensy bit? It would have certainly added some dynamic to his character, because as of now, he's got 0 spatial awareness. If not for his Mandalorian armor, which can deflect blaster bolts, he'd be a dead man. And we can't connect with him on an emotional level because we can't even see his emotions through his eyes.
He never takes off his helmet.
Now, I realize that this is traditional for the Mandalorians, but it's far from traditional for an on-screen leading role. In fact, I've never seen a lead role given to a character that can't express themselves in any way other than with their physicality or with their voice. And though it works for 1 or 2 episodes, I'm already having a difficult time bonding with this character in the same way I would with a character that I can relate to on a human level, because I can actually see their eyes and their facial expressions. Though it is a cool bit of lore, I believe the story would have been better served with a lead who had a face. Perhaps a fellow bounty hunter, or a ship hand who is handy in a gunfight and has a quick wit, like a Nathan Fillion type, or a Sam Rockwell type. The lack of a lead character with a face is felt even more deeply because the majority of the on-screen characters are either puppets, animatronic, or under helmets themselves, which leaves me with the feeling that I'm on this Star Wars version of the ride It's a Small World. Like the show is happening around me, or to me, rather than feeling as if I'm being drawn into it. That's it for this countdown, folks. Stay tuned for the Dopes version, where I walk you through some of the best moments of this series so far. And if you found this video insightful or informative or entertaining and you would like to see more of my reviews or discussions in the future, there is a button down below that says subscribe. Next to that button, it has a bell, and if you click both of them, you'll get notified when my channel posts content. Thanks for sticking around, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.